Hello, SLOconf. My name is Merrell, and I'm the Vice President of Technology Strategy for SauceLabs. For the next few minutes, I want to talk about functional testing and SLOs, because I think it's a topic that doesn't get quite enough attention in the industry. What I find is that people talk about SLOs in terms of very objective metrics, such as, we'll get into it, but error rates and response times, things like that. And I want to talk about how we can try to incorporate the user story more into this concept. So the next few minutes, we'll go over a few slides, we'll go over a couple of examples, and then we'll wrap up. Hopefully we'll get some good comments in the Slack, and I'll be there to watch to make sure that we get questions answered and we get some stories told, that kind of thing. And if you have stories to tell, please share them. I would love to hear them. So what we're going to talk about today is functional testing itself. I feel like that's worth talking about just as a definition. We're going to talk about SLOs a little bit, but I assume that if you're at this conference, you already know what that means. We're going to talk about the contrast comparison between SLOs that are recorded in traditional SRE teams as compared to how it is incorporated into a functional testing team. And then we're going to talk about how to incorporate functional testing SLO metrics into your process. Talk about the benefits of it, as well as some of the business risks of not doing it. First of all, functional testing has a lot of business requirements that when you talk about functional testing, it is a matter of users getting in front of your software and exercising what the expectation is of their work journey through your software. So if they're booking a flight, can they actually book a flight? Are they trying to reserve a hotel? Are they trying to buy something? Does the cart checkout flow work? That kind of thing, as opposed to how many transactions processed per minute. It's subjective measures, usually qualitative measures, not quantitative measures. So business requirements, things that are coming down from product or business analysts, or things that govern the revenue of the money, the cash, the business, the cash flow of the business, the user experience itself. Is the user having a good time using your software, or are they getting accomplished what they need to get accomplished, or are they having trouble? Are they getting stuck because some API was deployed incorrectly? Are the workflows still valid? Can people get done what they need to get done? And then is the data consistent? What I found in my career, I've got a 20-year career in quality assurance and functional testing, and I find that these operations tend to be very siloed and very much separate from the SRE teams. And that's what I want to talk about today primarily. So as SLOs apply to functional testing, traditionally we talk about things like response time, error rate. We talk about availability and throughput. We talk about very objective measures, concurrency. Are we able to host enough users at the same time? And then we talk about data flow. Is the data flowing from the end-to-end systems all the way from the user interface and the user inputs, all the way down the line to the business analyst system? Now, as a contrast, functional testing is more about completeness. Is the user able to complete their journey that they expect to complete? Because a user is trying to accomplish a task using your software. They're generally not trying to use your software itself. If you work on a video game system, there's a good chance that that user is there specifically to use their software. But many other systems, including business systems, they're there to complete a task that has nothing to do with the software itself. They're not there to click on the date picker for the travel app to book a flight. They're there to book a flight. They're there because they want to go to Aruba, and your software is the only thing getting in between them and going to Aruba. You need to make sure that they can get in and out quickly and that they have a delightful time doing it. So they'll leave you a nice review and say that, well, at least this software didn't get in my way of booking my trip to Aruba. So many times that's what happens. The software gets in the way. They have to pick up the phone, they have to make a phone call, and your software is no longer a piece of their journey. We need to make sure things are accurate. If there's a calculation that needs to happen, you need to make sure that it's actually working properly. And this is all, it sounds subjective or sounds objective, but it's actually subjective, because this is the kind of thing that isn't usually a part of systems testing. It needs to be consistent. It needs to work the same way every time. It needs to be performant, which is also part of the normal traditional SLOs, but it is also about perception of performance. Pages need to load quickly, and the Google search engine optimization algorithms need to make sure that the page is loading quickly so that they can rank your page higher than your competitor. It needs to be usable. And then data flow. Notice that those are in both columns. I believe that Functional testing it has data flow as much of an important component as does traditional SLO measurement. Now, as an example, around data flow specifically, let's talk about analytics. Now, what do I mean by analytics? It's generally a request that is happening, that's being sent off by your website. If it's a website or a mobile app, something like that, your user performs an action, and an HTTP request is sent along a journey to record some element of what you've done on the site. I have an example here. Please ignore, this is an eye chart. I want you to look at this because this is the kind of thing that, at least when I was in the quality assurance profession, people would go run screaming when they would see a request like this, because it's super complicated. It's all URL encoded. There's a lot going on in here. But really what's happening inside an analytics request is that it is taking some sort of record of how you are interacting with the site. It's combining that with how other users use the site. It's pulling some sort of demographic information based on what it knows about you from cookies from times you visited in the past, plus some sort of segmentation data that they might be buying from someone else, or IP address, geolocation, that kind of thing. It's combining all that information together to try to figure out how to essentially target you for lift, meaning how can we get you to increase your interaction with our site? How can we basically make more money or increase engagement for you? What are we actually looking at right here? This is actually what Wordle does. So, little game called Wordle. I'm sure you've seen it. When you use Wordle every few seconds, a request that looks identical to this gets sent to some aggregation in the cloud, in the sky. And when you break it down, it's just a bunch of key value pairs. If you'll notice, if you look at one of these requests, you could do this on your own. You can go to Chrome, you can go to inspect, look at the network traffic, and every few seconds you'll see one that says ping, and then you'll see these requests embedded into it. So they're measuring your engagement with the page. Are you still there, or are you not there? And it's probably, I am guessing, something to do that they do on all pages on the New York Times website that they use to target ads and to understand engagement. If you start to look at a page and then you leave that page and you're not engaging with it anymore, they probably want to look into what made you stay with it, what made you go away from it, and how can they improve your experience. These requests are how businesses communicate in order to understand the user experience and try to improve it and try to improve their revenue generation along the way. These are among the most important things happening in any business right now. Your CEO depends on these numbers being accurate. And the thing is, sometimes they're not accurate. I worked at a company, an e-commerce company that does coupons, voucher codes, stuff like that for a long time. And at one point, we found out that we were miscalculating the values on one of the attributes that we send along the click metrics of a user journey. And it cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars over a multi-day period because we didn't understand that there was just a simple addition math equation where numbers were supposed to be added together to understand where the user was in their journey, and they were being zeroed out every time a certain event happened. And that error had a knock-on effect, or a blast radius, that showed that certain other metrics were being completely miscalculated and a search algorithm was being completely messed up as a result of this value being zeroed out constantly. And it meant that all of the order of everything that was displayed on the page was completely wonky. We were not displaying the appropriate content for the user that they needed. And we were splashing all sorts of garbage on the screen that nobody wanted to see. So people immediately stopped engaging with the content, or at least they engaged with it much less. And we lost revenue that day. And the CEO, once we figured out how to test this stuff properly using SLOs and incorporating a little bit of SLA metrics there as well, we were able to guarantee that these metrics that measured our conversion lift and got us paid our commissions from the vendors that we worked with, we made sure that they were correct, and the CEO suddenly understood the value of functional testing combined with SRE concepts. So your task is to make sure that the downstream system is receiving this metrics within a certain number of minutes, sometimes seconds. Like when I first started doing this, you would pretty much require about 15 minutes for all those little pathways to be traveled down, but it's gotten much, much faster as we move to asynchronous and stream-based data management. And the other thing to understand is that browsers are different from each other. This may be an obvious thing to say, but it can't be stressed enough. Even Chrome and Edge, which use the same Chromium-based rendering engine, but also Brave, Firefox, Opera, Safari. I don't know why I said Opera before Safari, but they work differently in how they translate JavaScript. They have slight differences between them. So your browser, which you didn't write and you don't control, has as much influence on this as the code that your developer teams writes. You can't just rely on an API being called and an HTTP request being sent. You actually have to work on this through some sort of mechanism that clicks the browser button and sends the event manually. This same goes true with mobile devices, mobile operating systems, Android, iOS, all that stuff. And I guess the main thing that we're whittling down to is I feel like a lot of SRE teams, at least that I have worked with in the past, they essentially could be lifted and replaced in any other company in the world. They could say, I work for a bank now, but I could work for healthcare tomorrow. All I care about is error rate, response time, and making sure that my user page performance is consistent, or that I can handle a certain number of users at a time. And I am here to say to please entreat everyone to understand the business that you're in and to understand how to work qualitative, subjective metrics into your SLOs, because this gives your users a seat at the table. Otherwise, they're just sort of being treated as a grist being pushed through the mill. And the truth is, you can still get all the SLOs, the traditional SLOs, right and deliver crappy software. And I'm here to try to prevent you from delivering crappy software. These things should still count against your error budget, perhaps weighted even a little bit more than regular. Functional testing should be part of the SRE tool belt. And I think a lot of people avoid it because it's hard or because it's considered lesser kinds of work. But I disagree. Obviously, you've made a career out of it. So normally I would disagree. And it is really important to stress that protecting the user experience is the responsibility of everyone in the company. It's not just something that those QA folks do. It's something that everyone should be obsessed with, because the moment that starts to slip, the moment your ratings in the rating store slip, in the app store slip, things start to fall apart. You don't recognize revenue, revenue starts to drop. People stop downloading your app. And you probably, everyone in the audience probably has a story about an app they used one time and it disappointed them and they deleted it and never considered it again. So I want to say thank you. And I really would like to stress once again, I'll be in Slack and I want to hear stories from people about things that this is times when I've been right about what a disaster it can be. And also times when you've been right about, making the user a priority as opposed to making some sort of objective metric a priority. And with that, I want to say thank you to SLOconf for inviting me to talk, and have a great day. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.